Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're playing Geometric Fish, which picks its move following a geometric distribution where it has a 1 in 2 chance of playing the best move, a 1 in 4 chance of playing the second best move, a 1 in 8 chance of playing the third best move, and so on and so forth. Thank you to A521i3 for leaving this idea in a comment. If you have any ideas you'd like me to try, feel free to comment them down below. My goal is to win one game. Let's get started with game number 1. Okay, real quick before we get into the video, I get lots and lots of comments all the time about how I play against these bots. Actually, these bots are very specifically coded or manually done just for the channel, but honestly, it would be way more fun if you guys were able to play against these bots as well. So this is me announcing that you can now go to iwantcheckmate.com and play against any of these bots. There are no accounts or ads or any funny business. It's literally just an archive where you guys can go in and play against these bots as well. This will hopefully also increase accessibility, so if there are any YouTubers or up-and-coming creators that want to do the same video ideas that I've done, by all means, you can feel free to do the exact same challenges, and I wish you the absolute best of luck, because some of them are easy, and some of them I've gotten steamrolled by. If you're seeing this in a video, there is at least one bot to go check out that is based on one of my previous videos. I'll flash it up on screen right now. Anyways, if you guys do decide to go play, absolute best of luck. Other than that, back to the video. Alright, game number 1, I've given myself the white pieces, and I've also made the executive decision that I will go back and check the logs to see what level move, best, second best, third best move Stockfish made for each turn so that you guys can see it and I'll edit it in post. But I've elected not to look at it myself while I'm playing the game, so I don't really know if Stockfish is playing a very good game, a very bad game, so I don't have a general notion of how well it's playing on average, because that feels a little bit unfair. So you guys will see the level of the last move that it played, and I will not. In any case, I'm going to start off with a kind of unique move. I'm going to start with pawn to b3, and I think my reasoning is pretty sound. We're met with pawn to e5, but there are basically two different ways of looking at this. The first is sort of big picture. If Stockfish has a 50% chance of playing the best move, a 25% chance of playing the next best move, and a 12.5% chance of playing the third best move, hypothetically up to, the nth best move, I could think of it in terms of, on average, what level best move is it going to play? Now, I really don't know how to do that math, but I do know for a fact that it has to be at least not as good as Stockfish. The problem is I don't know what level best move that actually averages out to. If there are any statisticians or mathematicians down in the comment section below, please let me know what is the average best move that it's going to play based on this probability. I really don't know. If I did know, I could maybe play by that strategy, but the second school of thought is on a sort of move per move basis, which I think is what I'm going to intend to abide by for this game, which is that, for instance, it did play e5 here, so it kind of nullifies my reasoning, but I was going to play bishop to b2 and target g7. Reason being that if I take on g7, the first best move, which it has a 50% chance of playing, is just to take back with the bishop. But every single other move for the other half of that 50% is something other than taking my bishop. So that bishop is guaranteed to take the rook on the next turn, right? And that sort of move per move strategy, I think, is what I'm going to try and force onto the board. We are met with knight to c6. Now, of course, we run the risk that we get, I don't know, a 5-move sequence of absolute best moves, which would be game ending. But the problem is I really don't know how else to approach this challenge besides just targeting, pieces that only have one defender, aka pieces that can only be captured with the single top move. In any case, let's go ahead and just keep developing our pieces. We are met with pawn to d5. The other thing I can sort of loosely hope for is that we achieve a position like an endgame where there are only very specific critical moves that I am very capable of seeing, because again, an endgame would be a very simplified position, and that it, rolls the 10th best move and just absolutely self-destructs and has to just obliterate its own position. In any case, pawn to d5, maybe bishop to b5 here, with the idea that we're pinning the knight so that maybe we can grab the pawn on e5 if it doesn't find a way to defend it appropriately. Okay, knight to e7. I would have imagined that something like bishop to d6 or maybe bishop d7 breaking the pin would have been forced there, so I'm suspicious about how good this move actually is. Can I take on e5? I believe I can. I really don't see what kind of counterplay it has there, so I think this might have already been a mistake, and I can grab this pawn for free. Okay, we're met with pawn to f6, simply booting the bishop, and I do think we just got away with a free pawn there, so I'm going to... Oh, wait. I could take on c7. It almost traps the queen. The best move is obviously take back the bishop. The second best move I'd imagine is queen to d7, but that's harmless. And then anything past the second best move hangs the queen, because queen d6 doesn't even escape the threat. So you'd imagine if I take on c7, there is a 50% chance that the queen takes back. There's also a 50% chance that the queen, or I suppose another 25% chance that the queen is just safe. And then anything other than that, another 25% that the queen is lost in some way or another. So I think I might as well risk it for the biscuit. We'll just go ahead and take on c7. Oh, and the queen does in fact take my bishop. Okay, that wasn't completely unexpected. It's a little bit disheartening, but it wasn't completely unexpected. Queen takes back. I still have plenty where that came from. I do still think it was worth it to, go for the jugular on that one and just try and grab the queen, but the queen did in fact take back and escape. I wonder what happens if I put it in check next and I just keep trying to cause it as many problems as possible. Let's see, check. The problem is it would be with my own queen, which is not really ideal, because obviously if I try and sack my queen and the same thing happens that just happened to my bishop, then we're really not in a good spot. So maybe I just keep developing my pieces instead. Met with bishop to d7 seems sound enough. Let's go ahead and maybe play knight c3. Maybe knight d5 is a possibility because it's only defended by one other piece. Okay, met with pawn to g5, which seems a little bit suspicious. I mean, it's super duper aggressive, but it really doesn't look like a normal move at all. It also now opens up the possibility of, first of all, knight takes d5 only has one defender, and knight takes g5 also only has one defender. Of course, d5 being the point of actual interest, because if I take on d5 and I don't get recaptured, we're hitting the queen, we're hitting f6, there's check, we're hitting the bishop. Whereas if we take on g5, if we don't get recaptured, then we just won a pawn, which is the same thing we do over here anyways. So I say we go for the throat here. Let's go knight takes d5. Okay, met with queen to d6, which is an absolute relief to see on the board. Now, how to proceed? Maybe knight takes e7. The problem is all top three of the best moves there are probably knight, bishop, and queen takes back, which is probably totally fine for the engine. However, I could take on f6. Best move would be queen takes back. Second best move, I don't know, one of these two king moves. And third best move, same thing. I don't really win anything critical there, but it's not bad. I don't know, I feel like what I really need to do is target the queen in such a way where she can't be defended very easily. But that's way easier said than done. I don't know. I think I'm going to retreat the knight for the time being and wait for some kind of actual opportunity to present itself. Okay, we're met with pawn to g4, super aggressive. That's actually really uncomfortable. I might have to just move the knight back to g1 because I'm not going to throw it off to the side of the board to get trapped, and I'm definitely not going to centralize it where it's just going to lose me another pawn. So I guess knight g1 is kind of forced here. Okay, pawn to h5 here clearly continues the attack. I'm going to assume just on sheer chance that all of these can't have possibly been the first best move. But the problem is, since I'm not applying any pressure to the engine, this could be like a fifth best move and I'd still be kind of cooked. So I need to find a way to actually put the engine in critical positions back to back to back. Let's first of all continue with queen to e2 so that I have the opportunity to queenside castle. Okay, queenside castle from the engine, which takes inspiration from my brilliant idea. I still think that I should probably do the same so that my king isn't in danger on this side of the board. And now that my king is safe, or at least after queen to a3, king b1, my king will be safe. We can continue to actually look for, threats on the engine. Okay, we're met with bishop to g7. I don't know. I think I just need to start applying pressure, even if it looks a little bit brute force and savage. I'm just going to play pawn to d4 and just start throwing stuff in its face, because even if the engine plays first and second and third best moves for the entire game, it's probably still going to run me over like a school bus. So I'm going to just throw pieces in its face and hope to apply enough pressure that it eventually cracks. Okay, we're met with pawn to a6, which might be critical because why can't I just take on a6? Pawn takes back, queen takes, check. King moves out of the way. It just seems like there have to be really good opportunities there. For instance, knight to b5. Because the king has to be defended, there are usually only a couple of very specific ways that you can defend the king, and every other move outside of that is just not a good move. So because the position is so, as it were, at least will be so delicate, and Stockfish is definitely counting on very precise defensive lines to hold everything together, I think that's going to be enough long-term pressure that when it eventually plays, a 12th best move or something, I'm going to nail it into the floor and just crush it. So I'm going to take on a6 here. Oh, queen to a3 check. I did not see at all. Queen to a3 check, obviously my only legal move, or I suppose I could legally play king d2, but my only reasonable move is king to b1, and now I can just take on a6, and the attack has ended before it's even started. Okay, knight to b4 is on the board, and this is at least third move or worse because top two moves must have been queen takes and pawn takes. So this is an absolute godsend that we've just received. Knight to b4 seems to allow queen to c4, seems to also allow us just fully following through on the attack, which I would be pretty happy about at this point, I think. Obviously, I could also just spare the bishop, but then I'm not sure that I have the same amount of pressure on the king, and ultimately that is my goal. I need to put it in a position where long term it has really good top engine defensive lines, but is unable to follow through on them just on sheer luck. So I think here I'm actually going to sack on b7 for that pawn. Okay, the engine does in fact recapture with the king, who is now quite exposed. So how do I proceed? I'd imagine queen to c4 here looks like a good time. Let's go queen c4. Thought being, something like queen takes b4 completely risks it for the biscuit, but at this point in the game, I don't think I have a better chance. I mean, I've now sacrificed a whole bunch of material. If I don't get a critical advantage soon, I'm not sure that I'm going to pull this off. Okay, we're met with rook to c8. If I move the queen away, first of all, at least back to e2, because I really don't have any other safe squares. All of these squares are unsafe for my queen. So queen has to go back to e2. I lose the knight. The knight being gone means nobody's defending a2, so queen takes a2 comes knocking at my door. The king shuffles over, and I'm probably checkmated there, I don't know, after maybe takes on c2, recaptures with the queen, in like another two moves. So this is it. I really don't have any other choice. I have to take on b4. Again, there's only one defender, so 50% chance it takes back, but also 50% chance that it plays absolutely anything else, and then I just win a free queen. But frankly, I don't have a choice here, so I'm just going to go ahead and take on b4, and fingers crossed. And we are in fact met with king to c7, which is immediately, this is game over. I'm taking a free queen, and I'm up so much material that it could honestly play the best move for every single turn moving forward, and it would be toast anyways. We got through that by the absolute skin of our teeth, but frankly, this game was always going to come down to luck anyways. Knight slides back to g8 to obviously defend itself, so it's not hanging anymore, but I don't know, this seems critical already. Let's go queen to a5, and I'd imagine we can just, plow down on the king, try and stop it from escaping through d8. We're met with king to d6. It continues to try and escape, but I'll meet that with knight to e4 check, and it only has 3 legal ways to escape this now. We are in fact met with king to e6. I don't know. I don't think I have to overthink any of this. I'm just going to throw knight to c5 down on the board. We can trade off pieces, and this should be a pretty straightforward victory. Okay, it decides to sacrifice the rook, which is highly suspicious to me because it could have just as easily moved the king back. I'll actually go ahead and take back with the pawn to open up this? I'll go ahead and take back with the pawn to open up this d file, and then we have just a whole bunch of really good coordinations against the king. Bishop slides back to e8. I could be a cheeky son of a gun and just push the pawn. It only has one way of stopping me from promoting in 2 more moves, which is taking on c6, and even that opens up its position in such a horrible way that something like queen c5, targeting that d6 check, and of course targeting the bishop as well, is probably just about game over. So let's throw pawn to c6 down onto the board. Okay, the pawn actually is in fact taken by the bishop. We'll go ahead and just slide the queen over to c5, and again, I think we have a really good attack against the king. It worked the first time, just putting pressure on the king, so I don't see why we shouldn't just keep doing that. We're met with bishop to e4, of course moving the bishop out of danger. Why can't I just play rook to d6 check? Oh, there's no ladder's mate there because king f7 check, king g6, but after check, because it only has 2 legal moves, it's a 50-50 chance at that point. But if it does slide back to e7, it's game over in 2 more moves. So I'm going to throw rook d6 down onto the board. We are in fact met with king to e7, an absolute stunner of a move, which allows queen to c7 check. It only has 2 responses, which both lead to the exact same fate. We are met with king to f8, but we do get my favorite type of checkmate found in Van Gogh's cut off ear, ladder's mate. With that, we do in fact defeat Geometric Fish. If you guys did enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Thank you again so much to A5 for the original idea. If you guys have any other ideas that I should try on the channel, feel free to comment them down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.